Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the SimNFL show. Real talk about fake sports. I am your host and commissioner. You can call me Pierce. Today we are covering all of the Week 11 action of the 2026 season of the Pro Football Sim over at SimSN. If you're unfamiliar, come check us out on the website and on Discord. We would love to have you. So as usual, we'll cover stats and summaries from the Week 11 games, ending with my choices for the players of the week. We'll do a quick injury update, check on the standings by division, and then our big feature today, we're starting our discussion on extensions. Extension window is going to open here in a few weeks. Values have gone out to general managers, so we're going to take a look at some of the top storylines and the top both young and veteran players who could be looking for new contracts and what kind of amounts they could be looking for. So that'll be a pretty broad segment tonight, and then we will end with our preview for Simsgiving, which is Week 12. So let's go ahead and jump right in. In a tight AFC South matchup, the Titans defeated the Colts by a final score of 9-7. In a bizarre moment in the first quarter, the Tennessee Titans had a promising drive cut short by a Will Outman unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. So the quarterback got a 15-yard penalty. That pushed the field goal back to be a 54-yard attempt. Luckily, Richard Job made it, and the Titans had an early lead. In the second quarter, the Colts would take the lead with a 13-play, 90-yard drive. Mitchell Reynolds had the key play there with a 26-yard run, and that ended with a Skylar Simmons touchdown pass to his tight end Carl White from 4 yards out, giving the Colts the 7-3 lead. On the next drive, Will Outman hit Durham Simmons for 18 yards to convert a 3rd and 6, ultimately setting up a second Yob field goal, this one from 48 yards out, to trim the deficit to 1. Yob would then miss a 55-yarder right before the half, and so Titans would go into the locker room still trailing. In the third quarter, after another Yob miss, this one from 58, the Colts drove to the Tennessee 31-yard line, but Simmons, carrying the ball on third down, would fumble. It was recovered by Robinson Terrell, and the Colts would be denied any points there. Later in the third quarter, Tennessee's Davin Cozart ran for 12, and then Outman found Lorenzo Carr for a 17-yard gain, ultimately leading to a Yob 41-yard field goal and a 9-7 lead for the Titans. It would stay that way, and then late in the fourth quarter, with about under 6 minutes to go, the Titans would burn 4 minutes off the clock with an 8-play drive that looks like they might be in field goal range for yet another Yob attempt, but a sack on third down pushed them out of range. They had to settle for a punt. Indiana would then drive just short of midfield before time expired, and the Titans would escape with the 9-7 win. Will Outman, 103 passing yards and 67 rushing yards, did avoid turnovers, however. Joseph Kale had a good game, 121 yards on just 16 carries. Richard Yob was ultimately the hero. He attempted 5 field goals, all of them from 40 or more, made 3 of them, including a long of 54, and only missed from 55 and 58, and was able to get just enough points for the Titans to surpass the Colts. Mitchell Reynolds, great game, 20 carries, 110 yards. Skylar Simmons had a touchdown pass and that one key fumble, and it is the Titans who were able to keep pace in the South with this victory today. The Bills defeated the Giants 34-20. First big play came when Mickey Brogdon of the Bills broke off a 57-yard run that would set up the Asensio touchdown pass to Pedro Eckler from 17 yards out, giving the Bills the early lead. Later, the Giants would respond when Rudy Stokes made completions of 17, 13, and then 20 yards. They would get them down to the Buffalo 25-yard line until Stokes was picked by Terrence Seth, ending that drive. On the next Giants drive, though, Stokes hit Paul Canna for a 36-yard gain, then his tight end Marcus Rudolph for a 19-yard gain on 3rd and 20, and then Stokes would sneak it the next play to convert the 4th and 1 successfully. That drive, though, would end with a Matt McCants sack of Stokes, and they were forced to kick a field goal, but they made it from 31 yards out, and it was 7-3, Bills still leading at that point. Donald Kelly of the Bills returned the ensuing kickoff all the way to the Giants' 10-yard line, and then caught a touchdown pass from Asensio to make it 14-3. Giants would drive to the Buffalo 23 before the half, but would miss a 40-yard field goal and get no points going into the half. Later in the third quarter now, Buffalo would start at the Giants' 47-yard line for one drive after a good punt return. Took them 8 plays, but they would find the end zone, Mickey Brogdon running it in from 3 yards out. They would miss the extra point, but that would put the Bills up 26-3 at that point. Looked like they were rolling, but then Asensio had a really hard time. He threw an interception on the next drive, which would lead to a Giants field goal. And then the next drive, he would throw a pick 6 to Matthew Bradshaw. Bradshaw taking it all the way in and cutting the lead to 26-13. And then on the next drive, Asensio would throw a third consecutive drive-ending interception. This one would lead to Stokes finding Paul Canna for an 18-yard touchdown. And with the extra point, it was 26-20. So just like that, the Bills' lead had all but evaporated. But they decided to keep the ball in Asensio's hands, and he would eventually find his footing again. On the next drive, he went 7 of 8 for 80 yards, all passing plays on the drive, ending with a 5-yard touchdown pass to Brogdon. That got the Bills back on track at 34-20, and they after a 2-point conversion, and they would hold on to win. So 3 touchdowns, but also 3 picks for Yusei Asensio, 31 of 49 for 327 yards. A couple of touchdowns, 1 rushing, 1 receiving for Brogdon. J.V. Axelrod had a great game in the middle of that line with 5 tackles for loss. The Giants did have some success on defense. Matt Bass had 2 interceptions. Matthew Bradshaw had that pick 6. But despite the flurry of points in the third quarter, the Bills were able to put together the more consistent game. They ultimately won this one by 14. The Packers and Broncos played with the Broncos winning 43-15. Packers were playing without Joseph Garibay and Ramek Phelps. So Myron Everett got the start at quarterback for the Packers. Peter London would fumble on the very first drive, and the Packers would take advantage. Everett finding Nwachukwu for a 7-yard touchdown. They would miss the extra point, so it was a 6-0 lead at that point. Denver responded with a 10-play drive going 76 yards, ending with London finding Ryan Johnson for a touchdown pass from 5 yards out and the extra point to put the Broncos on top. Later in the first, Broncos were driving again, this time getting down to the Packer 32-yard line. Peter London, however, was picked by Manish Watson, and then Green Bay drove for a field goal in the other direction to retake the lead at 9-7. And then in the second quarter, Myron Everett heating up. He converted a 3rd and 11 with an 18-yard pass to receiver Leaf Allen. That set up another great pass, Everett to Carl Frost for a 6-yard touchdown pass. Paul Tompkins would miss another extra point, though, so at that point it was 15-7 in favor of the Packers. They would hold that way through the first half. Then in the third quarter, Broncos would equalize. Gesek had a 15-yard run. London had a 26-yard run. Then London found Stelly for a 2-yard touchdown, and they would convert the 2-point conversion to tie things up at 15. Broncos then would keep rolling. Still in the third quarter, Denver would go 81 yards in 13 plays. London finding Thomas Gesek for a 2-yard pass, making it 22-15. And then the next drive, they were on the move again. London breaking off a 52-yard run, and then a 1-yard touchdown pass to Carmine Rhodes to end that drive. And after 3 quick scores, it was 29-15 at that point. Then in the fourth quarter, Myron Everett, his one bad pass of the game, threw an interception to George Kent. That led to a short field goal, which still took the Broncos 13 plays to convert, but convert they did on a Ryan Johnson 2-yard touchdown pass. bringing the lead up to 21 and burning a significant amount of clock. And then London would run for a 24-yard score on the next drive to bring us our final of 43-15. London 4 touchdown passes and a touchdown run, 184 yards passing, 171 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns and over 150 yards for Ryan Johnson from scrimmage on the day. Myron Everett, solid day for the Packers, especially without his top tight end. 23 of 38, 232 yards, a couple touchdowns, and only 1 pick. So a solid day for Everett, but the Broncos were just too consistent and eventually pulled away in the second half with that offense, and with London having an excellent game. So 43-15 is your final score there. In another interconference matchup, the Raiders defeated the 49ers 17-10. In the first quarter, Raiders went for it on 4th and 7 from the 49er 44-yard line. Did not convert. And then the Vegas defense really let the team down. They committed 2 15-yard face mask penalties. Did the defense on that same drive. So I gave the 49ers good field position and then 30 free yards, and the Niners would convert with Vontae Nebel rushing it in from 18 yards out for the first points of the game. In the second quarter, after Vegas got on the board with a field goal, Romero found Fernando Thomas for a 30-yard completion. Nebel carried the ball for 15. They got into field goal range, but missed a 39-yarder, so the score was still 7-3 at that point. Later in the second, Hickson found Jeffrey Cobb for 23, hit blank for a 21-yard gain. All that set up a field goal for the half, so it was 7-6 at the halfway point. In the third quarter, San Francisco would put together a 14-yard drive, going 76 yards, leading them to a short field goal and a 4-point lead. Raiders would respond, Hickson finding blank again for gains of 16 and 25, leading to another Vegas field goal, making it 10-9. In the fourth quarter, San Francisco drove to the Raiders' 35-yard line, but Romero was sacked by Mark Tran on third down, pushing them out of field goal range. They settled for a punt, which ended up being a touchback, so a very, very short punt. And then Hickson took over. He found Mike Campbell, converting a 3rd and 10 with a 17-yard pass. And then blank again, big chunk play for 31 yards. And then immediately after that, he hit Rodolfo Chavez for a 32-yard touchdown. So over 60 yards in 2 big completions. They added a 2-point conversion to make it 17-10 with just under 4 minutes to go in the game. 49ers would start off that last drive, hopefully, with Joel Worley breaking off a 22-yard run. Then Romero was tackled for loss on a QB run, and then Carlos Ramos was called for offensive pass interference, forcing the 49ers to deal with a 2nd and 26. They would not be able to get the required yards in 3 plays, would turn the ball over on downs, and that was the end of it. So the Raiders survive. Hickson under 50% completion, but 308 yards and a touchdown still. 157 of those to James Blank on 9 catches. Scott Romero, no giveaways, 13 of 23, 156 yards. Vontae Nebel, 79 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown. And a couple tackles for loss and a sack each from Malcolm Kane and Dante Gates. But the Raiders do just enough to hold on for the win in this one. And stave off the upset. 17-10 is your final score. Bears and Vikings grounded out in a classic NFC North matchup, with the Bears winning 16-7. On their very first drive, Gerald Lewis threw an interception to Barry Taylor, setting the Vikings up with what looked like a golden opportunity. But on the very first play, Zach Gratterall fumbled the ball, and the Bears recovered. Juwan Hilton getting the fumble recovery there. So Bears escaped early disaster with that fumble recovery. Later in the first quarter, Vikings would get on the board first. Sinnott finding his tight end Velasco for a 27-yard gain, and then finding his tight end rookie Eric Braverman for a 4-yard touchdown pass to make it 7-0 there. In the second quarter, Vikings were driving again. They would get down to the Bears' 36-yard line. But on a 4th and 2, They passed up both the long field goal and the short conversion attempt and settled for a short punt instead. In the third quarter, first drive of the second half, Sinnock threw a pick six to William Owens of the Bears, though the Bears would miss the extra point, so they were still losing by one at that time. Then later in the third, Bears offense would finally get it going, driving down to the Minnesota 29-yard line, kicking a 46-yard field goal to take the lead, 9-7. Stayed that way until we were under 6 minutes to go in the game. Stanley Segovia had his first big run, a 44-yard scamper, followed by Gerald Lewis finding tight end Nick Evans for a 23-yard touchdown pass. 23-yard pass, which would set up a 1-yard touchdown pass to Jackson Freitas. So Lewis finally leading his team into the end zone, and the Bears would get the win 16-7. Christian Sinnock, 246 yards, a touchdown and a pick for him. A touchdown and a pick also for Gerald Lewis, who was held to just 20 rushing yards on 8 carries. Stanley Segovia made the best of his 8 touches, 80 yards total, including that big 44-yard run on the final scoring drive. And then William Owens, of course, with the big pick six to get the Bears on the board in the first place. So a defensive struggle. The Bears ultimately come out on top 16-7 final. As for the rest of the Week 11 scoreboard, Juan Mora got revenge on his old team. 11 carries, 132 yards, and 2 touchdowns, leading Miami to a big win over the Cleveland Browns. Baltimore got their first win of the season, and they did it in style, shutting out New England 25-0. Savage was 30 of 55, 284 passing yards, and a touchdown. Detroit clamped down on Cincinnati and won 18-3. The defense held Sean Curran to just 5 completions and 47 passing yards in the game. Tampa Bay beat Atlanta 26-6. Travis Kingery, great game, 15 of 23, 145 yards and 2 passing touchdowns. 11 carries for 64 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown on the game as well. Kansas City beat Seattle 34-14. David Chop joined the no passes hitting the ground club, completing 16 of his 17 passes with 1 interception. But he also had 226 passing yards and a touchdown, and 2 rushing touchdowns on the game. Dallas beat Philadelphia 24-6. Bam Bozeman was in for the injured Cecilio Fuentes. He went 21 of 31, 208 passing yards, a touchdown, and a pick. And the Cowboys defense held Aaron Poole to 9 completions and just 35 rushing yards on 8 carries. The Rams took care of Arizona 36-7. Philip Avila 26 of 35, 240 yards, 1 touchdown. So pedestrian passing numbers from this surprising Cardinals passing defense. But still, offense did plenty to win the game handily. On Sunday night, Carolina beat division rival New Orleans 38-17. Link had 2 passing touchdowns. He did leave the game later with an ankle injury. Theo Scribner stepped in and threw 2 more passing touchdowns. In total, 3 of those went to Russell Barnes, who caught 10 passes for 118 yards and the trio of TDs. Then on Monday night, the Jets beat Houston 26-12. Jesse Noel ran 14 times for 87 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Both quarterbacks were leading rushers for their teams in this one, Jesse Noel and Travis Neagle. But it's the Jets who come away with the win in prime time. So here are my choices for players of the week. Peter London, shown with 4 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown, and 170 rushing yards on the day. David Chop scored 3 touchdowns, including 2 on the ground, leading Kansas City to a win. Juan Moore had a pair of scores and made the most of his 11 touches against the Browns. And then Russell Barnes, 3 touchdowns, as you mentioned, for Carolina on 10 catches. On the defensive side, Gary Wheeler of Seattle had 3 sacks. Arthur Medrano of New Orleans did a bit of everything: tackles for loss, forced a fumble, broke up some passes, picked the ball off. Everything you could ask a cornerback to do in one game. Wilfredo Aguirre of San Francisco had 5 pass breakups in his game, and Dallas's well-named corner Jason Smothers had 6 in their game against the Eagles. And then finally, Ken Miller of Cleveland was thrown at all game, but did come away with 4 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, including a pick six. Was also everywhere, including in the backfield, with 5 tackles for loss. So a great day for Miller, at least, for the Browns. So congratulations to these 9 players on being named my Players of the Week for Week 11. So the big injury news, of course, is Dakota Link going down with that ankle injury. He's going to miss a couple of weeks, so weeks 12 and 13. Cecilio Fuentes still out for a couple of weeks for Dallas as well. And then, as you can see, Daquan Badgley running for the Eagles, still also with an ankle injury, still missing a couple weeks there. Few names that are coming back. Packers fans should be happy that both Garibay and Phelps should be recovered from their respective injuries and back in the lineup. And then Seattle's center Steven Steck. That was a fun one to say. He is out of concussion protocol and should be back at center for the Seahawks next week. So here is how things are looking in the AFC. You can see Steelers still holding a slim 1-game lead over the Browns in the North. The Titans got a win while the Jaguars were on a break, so they're a half game ahead now. Dolphins and Jets still just a half game away at 9 wins each in the East, and same story in the West with the Broncos and Chiefs. So looking very likely we'll have 4 playoff teams from those 2 divisions. Raiders also currently in the catbird seat as far as that 7 seed is concerned, followed closely behind though by the Chargers, Bills, Jaguars, and Browns. So still a very tight window for that final wildcard team. The NFC, Lions are still 2 games ahead of the Packers, though their rematch is coming up next week for Simsgiving. Panthers holding on to their 3-game lead over the Falcons. Commanders still a game ahead of the Cowboys, both of them breaking away from the rest of the pack in the East. And then Rams with a now comfortable 3-game lead in the West. Cowboys and Packers still holding strong as 2 potential wild cards. And Seattle at 5-5, leading the way for the 7 seed. So not a ton of movement in the NFC, mostly more of the same. But every team with at least 3 wins and 2 losses, so strong parity over here in the NFC. So, as I said, our feature today is on extensions. GMs by now have been sent the list of values and AAV expectations for everyone on expiring contracts, and extensions should open up on the interface in a couple of weeks. So I wanted to take a look, as I said, at some of the big positions that have some big names that are on expiring contracts, and some of the big dollar values that we might be seeing here at extension season if our teams and our players decide to negotiate. So first off, I want to say, obviously everything here is going to be at full price. There's going to be a lot of negotiation. A lot of players are going to sign for less than they necessarily want to, and there are a lot of variables there. But we are going to be talking about, at most what some of these players could be looking for. Oh, and then I have included a lot of stats, but all of the analysis and of course all of the driving force for value and AAV is overall. So we'll be looking at the highest overall players and seeing what they may be asking for. So just a couple of caveats. And then before we get into the players, I want to talk about some of the things that have changed as far as the calculation. These are mostly tweaks, nothing groundbreaking. I covered them in a dev diary, but did want to talk about them here. So first off, the cutoff age for veteran salaries to be considered as a baseline is going down by 1. So basically the point of this rule is if a player gets a huge contract when they're a superstar and then they start regressing and they regress down, several steps, several years. So if they're like a mid-70s player and they're playing on a contract they got in the mid-80s, that it's not going to inflate everyone else who's in the mid-70s. So at a certain point, these things get taken out of the baseline. And we're reducing that cutoff by one. So that's 33 for quarterbacks and kickers, 27 for running backs. So 31 is the cutoff for the other positions. Also, UDFA contracts are being removed from the baseline. This problem should eventually go away. We're redoing UDFAs and putting them on standard minimum contracts after a bid system. But for now, value of young players can get really inflated since some of these UDFAs get huge salaries, even more than like first round picks. So those are gone. Those aren't considered in baselines. And then I say increase the value impact due to age. Of course, the impact as you age is negative. As players get older and older, they expect less and less because they have less time to play and their overall is decreasing. So we have increased, or we have enlarged the magnitude of those changes. So now as players hit 27 and past, the values are going to be a little lower than they were last year relative to age and overall. Just to better reflect that and better to account for feedback we got, which was that a lot of veterans were still asking for a huge amount of money, even at age like 30 and beyond. So those impacts have been increased. And then the biggest change right now is that we are smoothing some of the values between overalls. So last year it was just a specific cutoff, so if there was a veteran who was, let's say, a 75 overall, who had a really, really big contract, and they were still within the age window to be part of the baseline, then everyone who was 75 and above would be looking at that contract as their basis for what they wanted to get paid, with still an age discount in there. But that meant everyone below that would be looking to some other contract, and it might be much less. And there could be a huge discrepancy in what players asked for with just a single point of overall. That's no longer the case. We've smoothed things out so that players, once we get that initial calculation, players also look at overalls one above and one below and average them out. And they take that average if it's higher. So basically you have your usual stipulation where you say, I want the most money of any one of my overall or lower. But then we also have some things to smooth that curve out so that 1 point doesn't make, a huge impact on how much you expect to make. So make it a little more equitable between players who are close in overall but not exactly the same. All that's happened under the hood. That'll already be built in when users go to make extensions. But I wanted to kind of spell out some of those here. So now we're going to get into the positions. And of course, anytime you're talking about contracts in a pro league, as far as football goes, you're going to want to talk about quarterbacks. And there are definitely some big name quarterbacks on expiring contracts this year. David Schaap, having totally turned around Kansas City, led them to 9 wins. Highest overall quarterback in the sim still at age 32, which again, 32 is the average prime age for quarterbacks. So Schaap could still have a number of great years with him. 2,500 yards, 15 touchdowns, 12 picks, 5 more rushing touchdowns. Definitely a big name, even at 32, for Kansas City to consider. Christian Shinnok is another big name. He's got a high overall, and he's younger than any of these other guys, so I think he's going to have a pretty high expectation in terms of money. But this is a pretty stark dichotomy between overall and performance. Looking at 4 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. I don't know if Minnesota is going to be willing to shell out the kind of money it would take to keep him. Especially since that would cut into the resources they would have to then build around him. But he is a high overall quarterback, under 30. So we'll see if they try to negotiate with him or if he tries to pull his own David Schaap next year and find redemption with another team. The oldest big name here is Jesse Knoll, who's 33. We know he's already regressing. So the Jets are, playing with fire as far as the retirement odds go. But Knoll has, again, led the Jets to 9 wins, close to 2,400 passing yards, almost 700 rushing yards, 21 total touchdowns. We will see if they try to do something short-term to keep him around, if they maybe inflate the dollars to shorten the length of time and see if they can keep him around for a couple years. Again, that's an if. And then Cecilio Fuentes in Dallas, 30 years old, 77 overall. Really, really strong touchdown to interception ratio. Been performing great for them. Van Bozeman has looked passable at times, but is still very young and in development. So we'll see if they try to work something out for him entering his age 31 season. Some recent contracts just for comparison. The Chargers gave Aguilera a 5-year, $84 million deal with $40 million in guaranteed money. So we're talking about $16.8 million on average per year to be their franchise quarterback for the foreseeable future. Pittsburgh with Robert Morris. As Morris is a year older, they went a little shorter in time span, so they did more guaranteed money, percentage-wise at least. So 3 years, $47 million, but 36 of that fully guaranteed. So $12 million a year. So that's 15.7 average annual value for what they gave Morrison. So 16 and change and 15 and change for these two quarterbacks. Chop, Noel, Fuentes. Well, Fuentes is right there in the age range. Chop and Noel might get a little less, being older. Although, again, they don't have the benefit of a 5-year time span like the Chargers did. So they might end up getting just as much per year in order to up the value on just a 2 or 3 year deal. Sinnock could be even higher given his high overall and his youth. So, again, we'll see if Minnesota tries to negotiate or balks at the price and sends him walking and looks for another option. So a lot to digest just in the quarterback market as we start our extension season. Another position I do want to talk about is tight end. This one got a lot simpler as both Ramik Phelps and Don Scott were assigned to 5th-year options by Green Bay and Baltimore, respectively. So Phelps is going to make $6.5 million next year on the option. Don Scott is going to make $5.13. The reason Phelps is higher is because he went to the Pro Bowl in 2025, so he's getting the average of the top 10 tight ends at his position. And a lot of those, and the way averages work, there's a couple that are inflating the average, so I think Phelps will probably be 4th or 5th highest paid tight end next year. Although I think that's a bargain, giving the kind of money, he's going to want top tier money, he and Scott both next year, because they're both going to be top 5 in the league, so they're going to be wanting the best contracts out there. So savings now for Green Bay and Baltimore signing those options, giving them 1-year deals, and getting a chance to kick that big expense down the road one more year. Miami does not have that option with Jamie Ramirez. They got to decide if they want to re-sign him. He's an 87 overall, one of the highest overall tight ends in the sim. He is entering his age 31 season. So again, we'll see what they decide to do with that. Sebastian Moore is getting $10 million this year. Washington's not paying that. I think the Chargers are because it was fully guaranteed. Then it got traded. But yeah, Sebastian Moore made $10 million this year. Kerry Slamba recently has $22.5 million fully guaranteed remaining on his remaining 3 years of his salary bonus. Sorry, and then Carmine Rhodes for Denver down to a 74, but still has 4 years and nearly fully guaranteed, 26 out of 28 million fully guaranteed in a 4-year deal. So about $7 million a year there. So we're looking at 10, 7, 8. Phelps and Scott signing for less than that on the option, but we'll probably want even more than that when it comes to a full contract. But Ramirez could be in the high single digits per year if Miami decides to go that route. Though again, there's negotiations to be had if they do. And of course, when I say average year, there are ways you can move that around. It doesn't have to be flat per year. You can have less in the current year and push money out to future years if you want. Dealing in broad terms here. But so yeah, with Phelps and Scott signing those or getting those 5th-year options, Ramirez is the big tight end to look for at extension season. Offensive tackle has a number of big names that are up for new contracts. Kevin Escobar is a 92 overall for Dallas. Carolina actually has a couple They've got John Mendenhall, who's an 88 overall, and they've also got Paul Caruso, who has now been playing tackle for them. He's an 88 overall at age 30. So Carolina, both of their starting tackles are 88 overalls, needing new deals. Elijah Rader is just finishing up his fifth-year option, and is going to be looking for a long-term deal. And is actually going to be earning at 17 pancakes, just one sack allowed for Houston, 84 overall. Yeah, absolutely going to be asking for money, but not nearly as much as Kristen Barraclaw. 83 overall at only age 23, leading the league with 24 pancakes as a pass blocking archetype. And they've been playing him at tackle, which makes more than guard. So, yeah, absolutely going to be a huge haul for Barraclaw. Even if the Saints do get him on a nice long contract at a team-friendly option, I'm thinking, on average, double digits a year at least. 10 to 12 probably. Maybe even more if he really holds out. But worth every penny. One of the best young players in the sim. Some guys to look at. Nelson Garcia is currently on 4 years, $56 million, only $24 million guaranteed, so higher total money, lower guarantees for him. But yeah, I mean, these top tackles can absolutely get after it. $14 million a year for Garcia. Mark Bishop is getting over $10 million a year for Indianapolis. Similarly, less guaranteed there, more money total. Same with Haim Costa for the Jets, even at 33 years old. He's got 3 years and $45 million left on his deal. So 10 for Bishop, 14 for Garcia, 15 for Costa. Escobar, Caruso, certainly probably on the lower end of that. Mendenhall, and then particularly Rader and Barraclaw, due to their youth, on the higher end, what they might be looking for per year. But again, the thing that Houston and New Orleans have is time. They have time to spread that out over many years, backloaded if they need to pay these guys what they're going to ask to be starting left tackles here in the NFL. The last position that I want to take a deep dive in is strong safety. If you're someone who is really interested in the meta of the league, not just what it's going to cost your team to pay your players, but looking at how the league in general is going to develop, strong safety is a position you want to watch this offseason, really. 4 of the top 6 players by overall, 4 of the top 6 strong safeties by overall are in contract years, and the top young strong safety, all up for extensions. So we could be completely redefining what this position gets paid in this next year. So just to go down the list, Manish Watson of Green Bay, 87 overall. Edwin Carter, who also Kansas City's Jan Miller is exactly the same as Carter, 83 overall at age 29. Gomez Rodriguez for Pittsburgh. All of them, you can see the kind of numbers they're putting up. As the best strong safeties do in the sim, they defend both the run and the pass, and they get stats against both. And then Matt Bass, quietly been the top young strong safety in the league at 80 overall at age 26. He's, I think, coming off an option. He absolutely is going to get paid 71 tackles, 8 for loss, 2 forced fumbles, 2 defended passes, 3 interceptions. Big payday, I think, coming his way. And then strong safety is interesting. As I said, we could be completely redefining the market, because right now the top 3 are making huge dollars, and then it drops off very sharply to a second tier, and there's another huge drop off to everyone else. But one of those, the biggest pay, is Johnny Wen, who is getting something like $22 million this year, but he's 33 or 34, so he's probably finishing up his career. His contract's over this year with the Patriots. And then otherwise, the top big names are Darrell Lee. Rams paid a bunch in picks to get him from Denver, and then paid him a huge sum of money to keep him around. Just short of $50 million over 3 years, 16.6 average per year. Then Calvin Preston is getting $15 million a year on a nice even $60 million contract over 4 years. So yeah, 16.6 and 15. I don't know that Watson, Carter, Gomez, Rodriguez, or Miller are going to get anywhere near that because of their age. But we'll be looking for a strong salary, high single digits, low double digits, and then Matt Bass probably double digits as well, given he's only 26. But again, the Giants have time to spread that out, so maybe they'll get a discount if they give him a long 4 or 5 year deal. But pretty much almost all of the top strong safeties are looking at contract years. So, if they band together, if they all negotiate hard, they can drive the price up. If even a couple of them hit free agency and are highly pursued, they could end up driving the price up for premier strong safeties. Or, if a bunch of them all get sent to free agency and they drive down their demand, who knows? Prices could stay low. But again, if you're interested in looking at a position over the course of time in the sim, strong safety is one that's in a great deal of flux. And this next season is going to tell us a lot about what safeties get paid going forward in the league. There are a couple other players that I wanted to look at, so I lumped them all here at the end. As far as receivers, Richard McGuire, 88 overall. Chargers just paid a first for him. He's got over 500 yards and 5 touchdowns for them. Could be looking for something in the Christopher Lee range. Lee is making $9 million a year as one of the top overall wide receivers in the sim for the Cowboys. Edge rushers, both Michael DeWitt of the Cowboys and Mark Soto of the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be looking for big paydays. Dallas knows now what it takes to pay an edge rusher. They were not able to make a deal with Michael Dyson. He left and he got $70 million over 5 years with the Saints in free agency. So a nice even $14 million a year, $9 million guaranteed each year. So yeah, DeWitt and Mark Soto as young edge rushers, probably looking in the low double digits for them as well for their services in the NFC East. And then finally, when you talk about off-ball linebackers, the big name is Jehu Ginn of Chicago, coming off his 5th-year option and looking spectacular, 82 overall, and probably looking at what Carl Rossania of Atlanta is currently making as, I believe, the highest paid off-ball linebacker, which is Rossania is at $11.9 million a year. With a high value, low guarantee payday. 3 years, just short of $36 million. So again, probably looking again for low double digits or more as well as a top middle linebacker. Of course, this is all supposition. We'll see who gets offered, who takes an offer, who walks away, who gets let go, who doesn't even get the choice. And which of these names enter free agency and what that market will look like, we will find out. My prediction is, again, as all these top pool players age, is that we'll see a pretty robust free agency market. Some of it with younger players, a lot in the 29 to 30, 31 range. But that's all supposition. We'll have to see what the 32 GMs in the league do at extension season before we can take a look at that. But yeah, those are some of the big names on expiring contracts and some of the big contracts that they could be looking for in comparison. With all that said, next week is week 12, which means it is Simsgiving. Happy Simsgiving to all. We will have our usual Thursday doubleheader with Dallas and Detroit hosting games. This year it's Buffalo going to Dallas to face the Cowboys. And then a big division matchup, Green Bay going to Detroit. Detroit now has the lead in the division right now, but Green Bay currently has the head-to-head. So if Green Bay wins, they are just a game behind with the tiebreaker. If Detroit wins, it's a 3-game lead, and the tiebreakers are even at that point. So a huge game in the NFC North on Simsgiving. And of course, Garibay and Phelps will be back for the Packers, and the team will be at close to full strength. But the great games don't stop there. Sunday early, we have Denver at Miami, the current top seeds in the AFC, facing each other. 9-1 versus 9-1. It's rarefied air that we get to when two teams of this caliber get to meet against each other this late in the season. So that should be a great one. Then in the afternoon, we have the Chargers going to Seattle to face the Seahawks, two 500 teams looking to stay relevant in their playoff races. And then Atlanta going to Los Angeles to face the 8-2 Rams. As for the rest of our prime time lineup, Sunday night Vegas is going to Jacksonville to play the Jaguars. That game could be huge for tiebreakers in the AFC playoff race. And then Monday night, Baltimore, fresh off their first win, looking to make it a double as they go to Pittsburgh to face the Steelers. So, some great games ahead of us next week. Hope you will join us for some Simsgiving football and catch all the action. That is everything I have for this edition of the SimNFL show. Thank you so much for stopping by. And as I say to all users in all of our Sims, good luck and have fun.